There is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when people realize something has changed about you. You're still there, you're still present, but you're no longer available in the way they expect. You don't respond immediately. You don't explain yourself. You don't rush to reassure, clarify, or fill the silence. And suddenly, they notice you more than ever. They replay conversations with you in their head. They wonder what you meant. They question where they stand. They lean in, psychologically, trying to regain something they didn't realize they were taking for granted: access to you. This is not coincidence. It is not confidence. And it is certainly not manipulation in the cheap, performative sense. It is scarcity, not scarcity of time, not scarcity of resources, but scarcity of self. Most people believe power comes from visibility, being seen, being heard, being understood, being chosen. They chase attention like oxygen, convinced that availability equals value. So they overgive, they overexplain, they overshare. They make themselves easy to access, easy to read, easy to predict. And in doing so, they become easy to ignore. But history, psychology, and human instinct tell a very different story. What is rare is desired. What is limited is valued. What is not freely accessible gains gravity. Thinkers from Machiavelli to Jung, from Schopenhauer to modern behavioral psychology, all circled the same unsettling truth. The human mind is drawn toward what it cannot fully possess. In this video, you're going to learn why withholding access doesn't push people away. It pulls them closer. Why emotional availability, constant responsiveness, and over-transparency quietly erode your influence. And how scarcity, when rooted in inner stability, transforms the way others perceive, pursue, and position themselves around you. This is not about playing games. This is about understanding a law of human psychology that has governed desire, respect, and power for centuries. Welcome to Psycrypt. Let's decode why withholding access makes you more powerful. Power rarely disappears overnight. It leaks. It leaks through constant availability, through instant replies, through explaining yourself before anyone asks, through emotional transparency offered to people who haven't earned it. Most people don't lose influence because they are weak. They lose it because they are accessible without cost. Think about how the human mind assigns worth. Scarcity sharpens attention. Abundance dulls it. This is not a moral judgment. It's a cognitive one. The brain evolved to prioritize what is rare, uncertain, or difficult to obtain. What is always there fades into the background. Carl Jung understood this deeply, though he approached it from the inner world. He observed that when something is too easily accessible, especially emotionally, it loses symbolic weight. The psyche stops orienting around it. Interest decays. Respect erodes. Projection disappears because nothing is withheld. And without projection, there is no psychological gravity. This is why people who overshare, over-explain, and over-respond are often overlooked, not because they lack substance, but because they leave nothing for the mind to work with. Machiavelli framed this more brutally. He warned that those who reveal themselves too quickly surrender leverage. When others can fully read your intentions, your emotions, your fears, and your desires, they can predict you. And when someone can predict you, they can position themselves above you. Access creates hierarchy. When you are always reachable, always explainable, always emotionally available, you communicate something without words. I need this interaction more than you do. And the human psyche registers that imbalance instantly. This is why people who withhold access, not cruelly, not manipulatively, but calmly, are often perceived as more powerful. They are not chasing engagement. They are not performing connection. They are not negotiating their worth through availability. They exist without urgency. And urgency is the currency of the powerless. When you stop offering unlimited access, something subtle changes. Conversations slow. People become more deliberate around you. They pay closer attention to your words because they are no longer guaranteed. They respect your time because it is no longer endlessly available. This is not withdrawal. It is containment. Withholding access is not about disappearing. It's about deciding who gets entry and when. And once you understand this, you begin to see the first uncomfortable truth. Most people are not ignored because they lack value. They are ignored because they gave it away too cheaply. In the next act, we'll go deeper into how scarcity rewires desire itself, and why the human mind chases what it cannot fully possess, even when it doesn't want to admit it. Once access is no longer guaranteed, something ancient wakes up in the human mind. Desire, not the romanticized kind sold in movies, but the psychological drive that emerges when something is just out of reach. Scarcity does not create interest out of nothing. It concentrates it. It sharpens focus. It forces the mind to assign meaning. This is where withholding access stops being passive and becomes transformative. The human psyche is not designed to chase what is fully available. Jung noted that desire is born in tension, between presence and absence, knowing and not knowing. When something is partially concealed, the unconscious steps in to complete the picture. Imagination fills the gap. Projection intensifies. Emotional energy follows. This is why scarcity is not neutral. It reorganizes attention. When you withhold access, your time, your emotional availability, your explanations, you introduce uncertainty. And uncertainty activates the same neural circuitry as pursuit. The mind leans forward. It speculates. It invests. Machiavelli understood this in social and political terms. He warned that leaders who make themselves too familiar weaken their authority. Familiarity breeds predictability. Predictability breeds complacency. And complacency invites challenge. By contrast, those who remain partially inaccessible, who do not reveal their full intentions, maintain psychological advantage. Others must respond to them rather than anticipate them. Scarcity reverses the direction of effort. Schopenhauer described this effect with unsettling clarity. He believed that most human attachment is not rooted in affection, but in dependency. When dependency is threatened, desire intensifies. The mind clings harder to what it feels slipping away, not because it values it more, but because it fears the loss of orientation. Withholding access triggers this fear without aggression. You are not rejecting others. You are removing certainty. And certainty is the psychological drug most people rely on. Notice what happens when you stop explaining yourself. People replay interactions. They reread messages. They analyze tone. They project intent. When you stop being instantly responsive, others start monitoring your availability. When you stop volunteering emotional reassurance, others begin seeking it. Scarcity shifts power because it forces effort. Effort creates investment. Investment creates attachment. Attachment creates influence. Kafka captured this dynamic in his own way. He wrote about individuals trapped in systems that demand explanation, justification, and compliance. Those who refuse to explain themselves disrupt the system, not by rebellion, but by opacity. They become difficult to process. And what cannot be processed cannot be controlled. This is why withholding access often provokes discomfort, even hostility. People are not angry because you are distant. They are unsettled because their usual tools no longer work. They cannot categorize you. They cannot predict your response. They cannot anchor their behavior around your availability. So they chase clarity. They chase reassurance. They chase access. And in doing so, they reveal how dependent they were on it. This is the paradox. The less you seek connection, the more psychologically significant you become. But this only works if withholding access is rooted in self-possession, not performance. Scarcity cannot be faked. It must emerge from a genuine lack of need, from an inner world that does not collapse without constant interaction. In the final act, we'll explore how this shift reshapes your identity, your presence, and your long-term influence, and how to withhold access not as a tactic, but as a permanent psychological posture that others instinctively respond to. There is a critical distinction most people never make. Withholding access is not something you do, it is something you become. Jung would describe this as individuation, the process by which a person withdraws their psychological center from the collective and anchors it within themselves. When your sense of worth, direction, and identity no longer depends on how others respond to you, access naturally becomes limited, not because you are withholding intentionally, but because you are no longer leaking yourself outward. You stop filling silences, you stop over-explaining, and something profound happens. People begin orienting around you. Machiavelli understood this at the level of power dynamics. He observed that those who reveal themselves slowly, selectively, and without urgency maintain advantage over those who rush to be known. This is why withholding access reshapes social gravity. You are no longer one of many voices competing for attention. You become a fixed point, someone others reference rather than interrupt. Schopenhauer would argue that this is the natural outcome of independence. The more complete a person is within themselves, the less they rely on the world, and the more the world responds to them. Not out of admiration necessarily, but out of recognition. There is an instinctive respect for those who are not governed by need. When your emotional center is internal, access becomes selective by default. Not everyone gets your attention. Not everyone gets your vulnerability. Not everyone gets your explanations. And this selectivity signals something unmistakable. Your inner world has value. Kafka's work reveals the darker side of this transformation. Systems, social, emotional, institutional, depend on predictability and compliance. People who withhold access disrupt these systems not by resistance, but by refusal to be processed. This is the final shift. Scarcity stops being a strategy and becomes a posture. You are not withholding to control others. You are withholding because you no longer need to offer yourself indiscriminately. And that is why withholding access makes you powerful. In the final word, we'll consolidate everything we've uncovered. How scarcity reshapes perception, desire, and authority. And how to live this posture without becoming cold, distant, or disconnected, but grounded, deliberate, and unmistakably in control. By now, you can see the pattern clearly. Power does not come from being constantly present. It does not come from being endlessly available. And it certainly does not come from explaining yourself into relevance. True power emerges from self-containment. When you withhold access, not out of fear, not out of manipulation, but out of inner stability, you reverse the flow of psychological effort. You stop reaching outward for validation, and the world begins adjusting inward toward you. People lean in. They pay attention. They become deliberate, not because you demanded it, but because scarcity reorganized their perception. This is the core lesson that Jung, Machiavelli, Schopenhauer, and even Kafka circled from different angles. Human beings are drawn toward what resists easy consumption. Jung showed us that when access is limited, projection intensifies. People fill the silence with themselves. Machiavelli showed us that those who reveal less are harder to control, and therefore more powerful. Schopenhauer showed us that independence naturally commands respect. Kafka showed us that systems become uneasy around those who cannot be categorized, processed, or absorbed. This does not make you cold. It makes you deliberate. It does not isolate you. It filters your environment. And it does not weaken connection. It replaces dependency with intention. The most powerful people are not those who are everywhere. They are those who are not easily reached. If this video resonated with you, there's a strong chance you're already sensing this shift in your own life. The pull toward restraint, toward silence, toward choosing when and how you give access. To deepen this foundation, watch our previous video, Why Being Unreadable Gives You Absolute Control. Jung's Law of Projection. It explores how withholding emotional transparency reshapes power at the psychological level. This is Psycrypt, where silence becomes strategy, where depth becomes dominance, and where power begins, not by taking more, but by giving less. Until next time, withhold access. Stay sovereign.